I think Aaron Rodgers is great. But when the comparisons were made years ago to Tom Brady, I said, well, he's got a better arm, but I think there are certain leadership skills that Tom has that Aaron does not have. I think Aaron's talented. He's more mobile. Maybe he's a better athlete. He's got a better arm. I'm not disputing that. Of course, Aaron is thin-skinned and thinks I don't like him. I think Aaron's great. He's one of the 10 best, 15 best quarterbacks in the history of the game I've ever seen, and I've seen all of them that matter. I'm not joking. Outside of Otto Graham, Johnny Unitas, I think I've seen most of the great quarterbacks. But it's interesting. Finally, another member of the media, sports media, NFL media, is recognizing what I'm recognizing. So Pro Football Talk came out yesterday and admitted Aaron Rodgers' criticism of joint practices, which he did yesterday, amounts to criticism of his new coach, Matt LaFleur. Pro Football Talk also acknowledged in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, Aaron Rodgers has criticized his new coach twice. One, on the audible thing. He didn't love the restrictive nature of Matt LaFleur's audibles. And two, by coming out and saying, and this is what Aaron said in the last 48 hours, in regards to the Packers' joint practices with other teams, quote, I don't think live special team drills are smart. The kickoff especially is dangerous. I just don't think it's the best use of joint practice. So what he is saying, this is essentially the equivalent to an eye roll to your coach. This is the equivalent of calling your coach stupid. If Tom Brady came out and said, I think these joint practices, I think these special teams drills are not very smart. Would he say that about Bill? Would he question Bill's audible system? This is the eye roll. 2 eye rolls before the season starts. By the way, isn't Jeff Saturday, former Packer, the one that came out and said Aaron would roll his eyes at Mike McCarthy's play calls? Didn't Aaron Rodgers lead the NFL last year in throwaways by a mile, basically acknowledging before the play started, I hate it, I'm throwing the ball out of bounds. This is the gap that I've discussed for years, Brady and Aaron. Aaron is condescending. Aaron goes public with it. Aaron takes shots at superiors. I don't control practice. It's not very smart. That's the gap. That is the gap. It's not talent. Aaron's got arguably more of it. But, ask yourself, if you were a high school coach, you're a high school football coach, and your high school quarterback came out and said, I don't think these joint practices are very smart. The high school coach would go down and talk to his high school quarterback. If Tua came out in college, if they had college joint practices, and Tua, the quarterback at Alabama, said, I don't think these joint practices are very smart, Nick Saban would bring him into his office. The difference here is Matt LaFleur, the new Packer coach, has to eat it because Aaron Rodgers is he's an icon, and he's rich, and he's got a Super Bowl ring, and he replaced Favre, and he's idolized, and he's worshipped, and mostly he's one of the great talents of our time playing quarterback. But make no mistake, these comments, thank you, Pro Football Talk, these comments were essentially the equivalent, the audible comment publicly and the special teams comment publicly, they're an eye roll, which is all I've been saying for years. Aaron's talented, but he's condescending. They did a study years ago at the University of Washington about why couples get divorced. It's not cheating. It's not money. They could predict with 99% accuracy why couples would get divorced. They would interview couples. They'd sit them down for a couple of hours. They'd ask the couples together all sorts of questions. And they could predict with 99% accuracy if they would get divorced. And do you know what the factor was that the social scientists or the psychologists could spot? Eye rolling, condescending, not respecting your partner. That just led to a Packer divorce. And already in a relationship, we're not even to the preseason games yet. These are calm waters. Already, Aaron is doing what teammates have claimed he did with Mike McCarthy. Sometimes you got to eat it. You don't want to go public. You could tell your coach in private, but Aaron makes a point of going out, making it public, which essentially is kind of embarrassing your head coach. I don't want this system. This is stupid. Why are we doing this? Those are private conversations. So again, Aaron just got a divorce from a football coach. Throwaways led the league. Eye rolling in the huddle. This is what causes divorces in real life. And it's just nice occasionally that I don't have to carry the water for the criticism of Aaron Rodgers in America, that he's not perfect? I mean, we're always willing to say Tom Brady's not very athletic. Tom doesn't get mad. He makes fun of that. On Twitter, he makes fun of that. Does everybody have to say Aaron Rodgers is perfect? Or can we acknowledge now more eye rolling? Because that's all these quotes are. They're the equivalent of eye rolling, which has been my primary criticism of Aaron for a decade. I'm a believer that when you raise young people, you got to be careful about missing steps. I've said this about the NBA before. This insistence that you find a high school basketball or an AAU player, 1 year of college, get him to the NBA, you're skipping steps. The maturity process of college. You're going to tell me a 19-year-old wouldn't be better with one more year of Roy Williams or Mike Krzyzewski or Jim Boeheim or Bill Self or Mark Few or Jay Wright? Of course he would be. We're skipping steps. That's why Adam Silver says, the commissioner of the NBA, all my players are unhappy. That's why there's so many busts in the NBA. You're skipping too many steps, a maturity step. College is where we all grow up. It's where you grew up. It's where I grew up. I learned how to make my own dinner, make my own budget, make my own class schedule, had to figure out how to use time efficiently. College was a valuable resource. Even though not a lot of the classes did anything for my career, it was a maturity stage, a maturation stage. You can't skip steps in life. Like when you see these child actors in Hollywood that all turn out to be losers, they skip steps. They need to go to summer camp. They need to be a kid. I don't want a 7-year-old to be on a movie set. That's why so many of the child actors are train wrecks as human beings by 25 years old. They're skipping steps. Let a kid be a kid. Let him go to hang out and be on an inner tube on a lake and go to a birthday party and eat too much candy and chocolate and get in a fight with his brother and his sister and, a normal process for a kid to be a kid. Their brains don't even form until they're like 24 years old. It takes a boy's brain 24. So skipping steps is generally, you can succeed initially, but over time, you will pay a price for it. So there's an article in Yahoo Sports, and it made me laugh yesterday. I'm not going to pick on the writer, but Freddie Kitchens is now managing the Browns with lessons he learned from Nick Saban and Bill Parcells. Okay, time out. He spent 1 year as a grad assistant with Saban at LSU, and 1 year as a tight ends coach with the Cowboys with Bill Parcells. He's not exactly a disciple. He spent 11 years with the Arizona Cardinals. That's his resume. That's his coaching experience. But what worries me about Freddie Kitchens is, and I'm not saying he can't succeed, but this article insinuates that he got great tutelage from Saban, and he got great tutelage from Parcells. In fact, his general manager, John Dorsey, says, one of the things I admire about Freddie Kitchens, he's got no ego. Well, Parcells does. Nick Saban does. He is nothing like those guys. But what I worry about Cleveland is that Freddie Kitchens missed steps. Okay. Cincinnati hired Zach Taylor, and people said, that's ridiculous. That's a terrible hire. Who is Zach Taylor? Zach Taylor had been a college offensive coordinator and an interim NFL coordinator. Then studied under the smartest young coach in the game, Sean McVay. Then he got an NFL job. He didn't skip any steps. People think Sean McVay of the Rams, he was like the new hire. He came from nowhere. No, he was an assistant position coach in the NFL for a year. He was a position coach in the NFL for 3 years. And then he was an offensive coordinator in the NFL for 3 years. Then he got the head coaching job. And he's like the guy that's considered a meteor, a rocket to a head coaching job. Not to mention, he had relatives who were in the NFL, so he hung out in the San Francisco 49ers offices when he was a teenager. Big advantage. Freddie Kitchens did not. Kyle Shanahan is considered, and I think Kyle's as good a young coach, including Sean McVay, as the league has. Kyle Shanahan was a coordinator at 4 different teams. Okay, Jim Harbaugh. He played in the NFL, most valuable position quarterback. Then he was a position coach in the NFL. Then he got a small college head job, and then a bigger college head job. And then he went to the NFL. They didn't skip steps. Nick Saban was a defensive coordinator in college. Then he was a defensive coordinator. And then he got a college job. Then he got a small college job at Toledo, then Michigan State, then LSU, then NFL, then Alabama. There's no step skipping. Freddie Kitchens He's never been a coordinator. Last year, he was a running back coach for Cleveland, who is now the head coach. I'm not saying it's impossible. I do think their roster is really good. I think Baker Mayfield is going to run most of that offense, but Baker's a kid, and Baker needs tutelage, and Baker needs guidance. That's just a reality for Baker. So does Sam Darnold. So does Josh Allen. So does Josh Rosen. So does Lamar Jackson. So does Mitch Trubisky. So, but I see this all the time. When I used to work at my former employer, I was in local TV and radio for almost a decade and a half before I got to my former employer. So by the time I got there, I had a game plan. I had a person. I mean, I knew exactly day to day what my brand was, what my belief system was. I always tell young broadcasters, don't be in a hurry to get to the network at 25 years old. Go make a bunch of mistakes. You're skipping a bunch of steps. Go to Midland, then go to, Ann Arbor, and then go maybe do weekends in Detroit, and then maybe a weekday job in Chicago, and then you can go syndicated. Stop rushing to get the big job. You're skipping a lot of steps. So when I see this article on Freddie Kitchens to manage combustible browns with lessons learned from Nick and Bill Parcells, first of all, combined, you worked for him for 2 years. One as a grad assistant. His reality is Arizona, where he had a bunch of positions and never a coordinator. And John Dorsey, because he doesn't want pushback from his coach. That's John Dorsey's personality. That's why he and Andy Reid did not get along, because Andy Reid pushed back on John Dorsey. So Andy Reid got him out of the facility. John Dorsey hired a kid who, to me, has skipped steps. And I think if you look at camp so far with Freddie Kitchens, I don't think he's done a bad job, and I'm rooting for him. I'd like to see I'd like to see the Browns not be man overboard. I think they'll be good, 9-7, but don't kid yourself. This is a hard team to manage. OBJ, Baker, youngest roster, high expectations. And the very quiet Pittsburgh Steelers down the street are just sitting there looking and rolling their eyes at the circus on a weekly basis Cleveland is delivering to us, the media. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.